Hello, darling hearts. It's your GAPS coach Emma here with the Morley Robbins. I'm so excited and thrilled to speak to him. He's like, no, no, please don't. I was blessed to be fortunate enough to stand next to Morley in the queue for the food at the Wise Traditions conference in Utah last October. And we got chatting and we really are on the same page. And so it's very exciting to be able to help promote his amazing book, Cure Your Fatigue. See you as in copper. That's what we're going to be
Right
talking
here.
about today.
Here's a
Yeah, there
bigger
it
version of
is.
the book.
I see you. I see you. So I just want to give my people a quick lowdown of the basic story so far as I can see it. And you can correct me if I'm wrong in a minute, Morley, but just to give people context.
Yeah.
They've been fortifying the flour since 1943, I think, which means they've been adding iron to the flour, along with niacin and folic acid, and I don't know what, things we don't really need. And therefore, as we have a iron recycling system in our bodies that recycles all of our iron 98%, we don't need that much iron. So most of us have got iron overloaded, mostly because copper, which regulates iron, is not so present in our current food system because of the indiscriminate use of glyphosate, which is known as Roundup. It's sprayed all over our crops, all over the grains most of the time, and that chelates copper quicker than anything else and interferes with our metabolism and our mineral balance. Add that to the fact that when we get stressed, we lose magnesium at such a rate that we are all magnesium deficient. And when you're stressed, it just disappears. And what have we all been the last 5 years since the pandemic is very stressed. So those three minerals need balancing. Add to this also the use of synthetic vitamins and minerals like D3, like vitamin C as a ascorbate, like zinc, which exacerbate the problem because they interfere with the metabolism of copper and stop us making, they inhibit us making and destroy ceruloplasmin, which is the main peptide, I think it's a peptide, that carries copper in our body and helps us with thousands and thousands of metabolic functions. So, Morley, if have I got that vaguely right?
Yeah, I'm very pleased. You've nailed it. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
One down, 8 billion to go.
There's more. There's more of us than just me and you, Morley. Never worry about it. We're going to get the word out there. So I've got a few questions for you.
I bet you do.
May I ask? So I've got a question about ferritin. So
Yeah.
ferritin levels, when
You're
we
gonna
measure
lead with
ferritin,
ferritin? Oh my gosh.
who's
Usually people try to ease into ferritin. You're just gonna right out of the blocks.
going
Okay.
straight
All
in there,
right.
because most of my people are quite educated in these things anyway, but people say, well, my ferritin
Okay.
levels are this, my ferritin levels are that. And, I think ferritin is the storage version of iron, which shouldn't be floating around in our blood anyway. So it's a silly test to take, but people still look at it and go, well, my ferritin's really high. And it's supposed to be at around 200 and something for men and 300 for women or something like that. But most of the time, no, much less than that, I think, much less than that. You
No,
can
right.
inform us anyway.
It's supposed to be zero.
It should be zero. Right. Because some people
And
say my ferritin level's only 7 and I need to get it up. It's like, no. Okay. That's answered that question. We don't need to go any further.
well,
Thank you.
no, that
Um,
requires a little bit more comment. Let me just share something.
go for it.
Um, so the world's authority on ferritin is an iron biologist at Liverpool University, or is it the University of Liverpool? I don't know which it is, but his name is Douglas Kell. And in 2009, he wrote a very important article called "Iron Behaving Badly." Now, if a scientist wants to make a statement in an article, they'll have about 100 footnotes. It's like, okay. If they really want to make a statement, they'll have about 200 footnotes. Dr. Kell's Iron Behaving Badly has 2,469 footnotes. And what he's telling the scientific and clinical community is you're not just wrong about iron, you're dead wrong. And then he followed up that article in 2014 with a very important article he wrote with Escherisha, can't think of her last name, um, Pretorius. Um, Ferritin is a disease marker.
Wow.
And now the complication is there's um, a Welsh hematologist um, who claims that ferritin is a indication of amount of iron storage in your body, and his name is Dr.
Oh,
Jacobs et al.
I lost your audio for a moment there. Carry on. So your Welsh
Okay,
guy claims.
Welsh hematologist Dr. Alan Jacobs. In 1972, he wrote a very important article about ferritin. In 1976, he became a fellow of the Royal Academy of Physicians. That's a big deal. And then in 1977, he wrote a very important article that solidified his position on ferritin is really important. So you've got Douglas Kell versus Alan Jacobs, and my money's on Kell. And so I've renamed ferritin. I
What have you
call it
called it?
Eritin, because more mistakes are made interpreting low ferritin to give people iron infusions. And
Tell me what you call
it's
it again.
Eritin,
Eritin.
ERR. I mean, it's just the public is just so easily hoodwinked. It's really sad. And I'm sure your followers are very switched on, but most people are just, what? I got to do what? No, what? Oh my gosh, my vitamin D is low. Oh, I'm anemic. Oh, and so they freak out at the slightest drop of a hat. And the 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 tragedy with low ferritin, I think it's really an indication of poor health in the spleen. High ferritin is poor health in the liver. But the problem we've got is that everyone is preoccupied with what's my iron absorption at the front end in my diet. We only need 1 milligram of iron a day based on the seminal work of McCants and Woodison, who are preeminent UK-based physician and nutritionist back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Their textbook on mineral metabolism is still used in nutrition schools. It's on its 18th edition. So when McCants and Widdowson say, "Boo," you better listen, and they say you need 1 milligram of iron a day. Now there's a concept in medicine and nutrition called nutritional immunity. You may never have heard of it. And it was coined by the Dr. Ed Weinberger here in the States back in the 70s. And he was an iron biologist too. And nutritional immunity, it's a very simple concept. You do not ingest an element that feeds the pathogens. And that's exactly what iron does. And so people worry about their, quote, low ferritin. Oh, I better start taking more iron supplements. I better go get an iron infusion. And they're not thinking about the back end. At some point, we got to get rid of this iron,
Yeah.
right? And the body needs to recycle it. That's where 95% of the iron comes from for our daily use. We need 1 milligram from our diet and 24 milligrams from the recycling system that nobody talks about. The formal name is reticuloendothelial system. It took me 2 years to figure out that meant recycling. But that's exactly what it is, just a recycling system, very sophisticated, and it involves the spleen, the liver, and the bone marrow. Nobody ever talks about the spleen, liver, and bone marrow. They just know, oh, I'm low in iron and I need more iron. Not thinking about the fact that the foods worldwide now, 80 countries fortify their food with iron.
It's mad. It's
I
absolutely mad.
actually I no longer call it iron fortification, Emma.
What do you call
I
it?
call it iron fornication
Yeah.
because we're really being messed up by it, and
I
people don't
mean,
understand that.
we can laugh about it, and because if you don't, you cry. We have to laugh in the face of this travesty, this disgusting, terrible. It's messing us up really badly, and we've got to laugh.
Right. And people really struggle with, well, they wouldn't lie to me, would they? They've,
Yeah,
they've been lying to us our whole lives.
yeah,
What part of our life is the truth? Let's
yeah.
start there.
So,
You know,
Morley, may I ask you then, do you think that people who eat lots of liver and meat, do you think they could be overloading with iron?
um, well, there's a difference between organ meats and muscle meats. Big difference. In a healthy animal, pre-Roundup, again, that's an important caveat. But in a healthy animal that was eating non-GMO exposed grass, they would have 9 milligrams of copper and 3 milligrams of iron in a 100-gram portion. 100 grams is about the size of the palm of your hand. And so historically, liver is a great source of nutrients, not just the copper and iron. It's
Yeah.
got incredible enzymes, the nutrient density, the B vitamins, catalase. I mean, there's such important factors in the liver meat, but muscle meat's very different, and modern organ meat is very different than historical organ meat. Today, contemporary studies of grass-fed animals in the modern era, it's 9 milligrams of iron and 3 milligrams of copper. So they flipped it. So you're asking the right question, and people have been conditioned that, oh, if I want to stay healthy, I'll eat organ meats, and that's true up to a point. And people are not thinking about the fact that the nutrient tables that guide a lot of decision making haven't been updated since the 1950s.
Whoa.
So we live in a very different world than the pretend world that we want to think we live in. So if you're familiar with the movie It's a Wonderful Life, it's a very popular movie here in the States around the holidays. We all think that we grew up in Bedford Falls, when in fact we're really living in Pottersville. It's a really dark place, and we just don't realize how our health and well-being is being manipulated by the system, by the farming system, by the food processing system, by the pharmaceutical system, and we just innocently go about our day hoping for the best, but not realizing that there's very specific actions we can take, which are profiled in the book, to take control of our health. And it's just, you know, I'm tired, I'm really out, and I don't want to have to make any changes. And the real tragedy, Emma, the greatest tragedy of all, is that when you're in a stressed out state, you become a magnet for iron. And the iron recycling system doesn't work right. And people don't know that. And then what's happening is, as you're dealing with chronic stress, there's an iron hormone that no one's ever heard of, no doctor's ever heard of. It's called hepcidin. And hepcidin is a badass, and it stops iron recycling, stops it in its tracks. And so the iron builds up in the tissue and doesn't show up in the blood. It's well documented in the literature. This is very well documented, especially by Dr. Kell in his signature articles, and none of which are read in medical school, ding, 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 or nutrition school, ding, ding, ding. And iron's building. Iron looks low in the blood. It, the blood test does not measure tissue status. The blood test does not measure the amount of iron in my heart, in my liver, in my kidney, in my brain, in my endocrine glands. That's where it accumulates.
Yeah.
It's well established. Bruce Ames back in 2004 did a definitive study about iron accumulation in the body. And so people are not thinking about the iron there. They're just saying, oh, I'm anemic. And then they run to the pharmacy to get an iron
More
supplement,
iron or infusion.
more infusions. And it starts to auger down and the
Right.
body begins to deteriorate and nobody knows why.
Nobody knows why. And one of the, may I interject, forgive me, but I've just reminded of something I read recently in your book about women's iron levels in their blood when they're pregnant, which the first two trimesters measure a similar amount to if a normal non-pregnant person, a woman, and then in the last trimester it drops dramatically, and that usually in the mainstream signals them to give an iron infusion because your iron levels have dropped, but actually
Right.
it's supposed to drop. That's the
Exactly.
physiological normal thing to happen.
Right. Exactly. And because Mother Nature knows you can't make breast milk if you're full of iron. The other side of it is as soon so everyone the meme that runs the planet, two-part meme, you're anemic and you're copper toxic.
Yes.
Everyone believes that. Oh, I'm afraid of copper, not knowing that copper regulates iron in the body. Copper is the general, iron is the foot soldier. Don't need to be in the military to understand the difference. If you're struggling with that, think of General Patton. He moved a lot of iron during the Second World War. He was really good at it. And so people aren't thinking that way and they're afraid of copper. So here's the catch. When a woman gets pregnant, there's a doubling of copper in the blood and there's a tripling of ceruloplasmin in the blood. So if copper is toxic, why would Mother Nature engage in that really dangerous activity? And we have a completely fabricated understanding of copper by the system. The only thing that copper is toxic to is big pharma profit.
That's
That's
a fantastic statement. I like that.
right.
So how can I mean, we've outlined the terrible things going on. Let's start talking solutions
They're not,
and remedy.
let's not call them terrible. They're just real.
Yeah,
It's
just it.
it's our life,
Yeah,
and we're waking up to it. And what the purpose of the book is, it's a guide to help you deal with the insanity of your environment.
yeah. So I know a lady, as you know too, called Sally Kay Norton, who works with oxalate awareness, which is a plant toxin naturally occurring that builds up little shards of glass like crystals of calcium oxalate, which can be the cause of kidney stones, just if anyone hasn't heard of them. And Sally has great results with her clients, helping them to become oxalate aware. But she does recommend taking calcium citrate, magnesium citrate, and potassium citrate as a remedy to help with the oxalate dumping. And I've read in your book that taking citrates actually interferes with copper metabolism. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it's just Dr. Osaki at Florida State University in 1966 identified it as an endogenous ceruloplasmin inhibitor, or ferrooxidase inhibitor. So those are big words. It, endogenous means naturally occurring inside the body. Ferrooxidase is the master antioxidant enzyme in our body. Inhibitor stops that function. And when you study oxalates in the plant world, why do they exist? Do you know why they're there?
To stop pests eating plants.
And how do they stop the pests?
The pests ingest the oxalates and it paralyzes their digestive system, I believe.
Right. Well, what the oxalates are really doing is chelating iron.
Aren't they?
Yes. It's an iron chelator.
Oh, that's good then.
Well, of course, it's good. And so when you don't have optimal copper metabolism, iron's going to act out. And so someone who, at least in the experience I've had with clients, someone who's struggling with oxalates is a copper desert. The,
Right.
bot, the body is using the oxalate as a defense mechanism to deal with the iron buildup because it doesn't have the copper to recycle it, to manage
Right.
it, to regulate it. And so oxalates in and of themselves, yes, they are very destructive. They're very painful. But think about the fact that what's causing the stone is we got to wall off we got to wall off stuff to keep it away from the iron. It's just people are not they're not thinking the process through, and so the oxalate issue needs to be put into a broader context of what's the overall dynamic between copper and iron in this body.
Right. Can you hear my dog
Listen.
crying? He wants to go for
Well,
a
I
walk.
figure I said something that upset him.
No, he did. Okay, that's
Maybe
very
he doesn't agree
interesting.
with me.
So, I mean, taking in foods that are high in oxalate is not going to help us in the long run, is it? But if we have more copper in our diet, then it will help us to. It won't help us process the oxalates though, because I believe it's the lack of oxalobacter in our gut that's stopping us from processing oxalates, isn't it?
Yeah, that's part of it. And so, in the world of the root cause protocol, where life on planet Earth is regulated by a three-ring circus, and you've got copper, iron, and oxygen. And if those three elements don't get along with each other, you're going to create oxidative stress, which is going to create fatigue. We're not talking about chronic fatigue, we're talking about cellular energy deficiency, which is the basis of all 20,000 conditions profiled in the Merck manual. They all begin with cellular energy deficiency. And then this symptom appears and that symptom appears depending upon other dynamics. And most people, and certainly most practitioners, have what I call a mailbox mindset. You walk into a post office and there's 100 post office boxes, right? Each one with a different key and combination to open it up, right? And so we are trained, like circus bears, to believe that we need the right key, right combination to get that door open so I can deal with that problem. Well, when I was in college, I worked in the mailroom. I worked on the other side of the box. I had access to everyone's mailbox. And that's copper and retinol and magnesium inside the body regulating what's going on. And people just don't know the sophistication and the reach of bioavailable copper. They've never been taught that copper is actually your friend. It's not a toxin. And let me give you an example, real quick. Let me give you an example of what we're dealing with. I've been studying literally for 17 years, daily, 3 hours a day. I've read, now I think I've estimated it's about 12,000 articles. So I've read a thing or two. And guess what I discovered just this week? Something called indoxyl sulfate. Have you ever heard of it? No, I hadn't either. It's amazing. It turns out that when you eat tryptophan, which is found in turkey, especially turkey, and pork, there are bacteria in our gut that turn it into an indole group. Indole group is just a chemical structure that goes to the liver and it sulfates the indole group and it becomes what's called indoxyl, INDOXYL, sulfate. Indoxyl sulfate is considered one of the most toxic elements in our body. It is tied to not just chronic kidney disease, heart disease, neurodegeneration, diabetes, autism, just to name a few. And yet, I mean, I don't mean to sound braggadocious, but I've read a lot of stuff. But I'm stumbling over this thing, indoxyl sulfate. And when you Google it or you go to AI, your trusted source of knowledge, which is a complete and utter joke, but when you go to AI and look up indoxyl sulfate, what you'll learn is that it's gram-negative bacteria, especially E. coli, that have a known ability to turn tryptophan into indoxyl in these indoxyl groups using an enzyme called tryptophanase, just ASE is the word that, or the letters that are used to describe an enzyme. And oh, lo and behold, we've got to deal with gut dysbiosis. And that's where most of the world is worrying about their gut. Oh, I'm out of balance. I got to do something. I got to do a cleanse. I got to do a detox. And I studied this for a couple days. I went, wait a minute. And I woke up yesterday morning. This is divine intervention. And this is the question that was in my cranium as I woke up. Could iron fortification disrupt the bacteria to cause the increased production of indoxyl sulfate? And lo and behold, that's exactly what's going on. Because people think they're anemic, they're eating more iron, they're iron fortified, iron supplements, iron this, iron that, and they're creating, it's a known relationship between iron intake and gram negative bacteria, especially E. coli in the gut. And so they're massaging their gut, but they do nothing about their diet.
Or they
And they
think they're
don't,
doing the right thing. That's the
of
thing,
course they
that they're
do.
deceived, and it's so
The,
sad.
the system is constantly moving the, the walnut shell. So you don't know where the pea is,
Yeah.
and you keep chasing it, and it comes back to the three-ring circus:
Right.
copper, iron, oxygen.
Great.
And those are the big three.
So, how can people, when people say, "Oh, yeah, but I've had a look at my hair mineral test analysis, and I'm copper toxic,"
Right.
are there different kinds of copper that could be in the body, or is it just copper in the body? Is there
Uh,
bioavailable copper, yes, and non-bioavailable copper? But when the hair mineral test analysis says I'm copper toxic, what does that mean?
well, let's back up and figure out where did that phrase come from? Copper
Copper
toxic.
toxic.
Came from a psychiatrist. That should be your first clue to get nervous, right? His his name was Carl Pfeiffer. He got his PhD before he got his medical degree. That should be a second reason to get nervous.
Mhm.
That means he didn't get into medical school right away, right? Oh, I wanted to get my doctorate first. Oh, okay. Um, and so in the late 60s, I think it was around 67, he wrote an article about unbound copper from ceruloplasmin. If it gets breached, releases copper into the bloodstream. And he created the illusion of this unbound copper was toxic. Now, what you have to understand in physiology is that there are chemical agents that can change the conformational structure of ceruloplasmin. So let's just put it into context. Um, Insulin, which everyone's familiar with, has 45 amino acids. Ceruloplasmin has 1,046 amino acids and 8 copper atoms inside it. It's a very different, very complicated, very sophisticated, one of the largest proteins in our body. And yet it's the master antioxidant in our body. Nobody knows about it. They've never heard of it. Cerulo means sky blue, and it's the blue protein. It's literally the color blue in that bagel book that you've got. That blue right there. That's
Sky
the color of
blue.
cerulo, sky blue. And there are chemical agents that will cause it to release its copper. Ascorbic acid is a very known agent. Too much blood sugar. A Russian team in 2019 um, identified any blood sugar above 120 destabilizes ceruloplasmin, causes the coppers to leak out. High uric acid over 6 causes a leaking of the copper. Um, Hormone replacement therapy, ding, 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 Antibiotics, ding, ding, ding. Psych meds, ding, ding, ding. And the highest the highest copper in the serum, according to a meta-analysis from I think 2020, was schizophrenic patients. And so you're left with the impression that, oh, it's this unbound copper that's the problem. Well, there is no unbound copper. As soon as the copper comes out, when it's inside the protein, it's a +1. When it comes out, it gets oxidized. Oxidized means an electron was taken away, and now it's +2. But the +2 copper is immediately attached to albumin, attached to transcuprine, which is like transferrin. You've heard of transferrin. Well, transcuprine is moving copper, and the amino acid histidine. It's immediately bound to something. And so this notion by Carl Pfeiffer is a complete travesty. And what's important to know about Carl Pfeiffer is he was a principal in the CIA's MK Ultramine program here in the States. So that invalidates him as a viable source of information. But the moniker stuck. Copper toxicity is taught to all these mineral practitioners, hair tissue mineral especially, and they are convinced that it's copper causing all the problems, when in fact, when copper is inside the ceruloplasmin protein, it's regulating iron. When it comes outside the protein, you lose that regulation of iron. Well, there's easily 50 to 100 times more iron in your body than copper.
Yeah.
The amount of copper in your body fits on the head of a 1-inch stick pin. It's a really tiny amount of copper, but that's the bad guy. And we're going to ignore the 100-fold increase in iron in the body. And so iron is the master pro-oxidant on planet Earth. But people don't know that. They just know that when iron gets around oxygen, it causes rust. Well, one of the byproducts of that interaction is this disruption of the metabolism of the body. But it's the iron that's been destabilized because the copper got destabilized by one of those chemical agents. Birth control pills is another famous source of ceruloplasmin disruption. They knew back in the 60s at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, they were doing studies knowing and documenting the disruption of ceruloplasmin physiology as a result of birth control pills. They knew exactly, and I'm not going to get into the moral side of it, but the biochemical side was destructive beyond belief. And it's a very sad situation. And so in the world of the HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, they talk about three sisters. They talk about copper toxicity, excess estrogen, and excess calcium. What they don't know is, well, why are they high? Well, the copper's high because there's a chemical agent. Well, if copper's become unbound from its protein and is now bound to something else, it loses its iron regulatory function. And when you lose iron regulation, you lose an enzyme called ferroxidase. Very, very important enzyme. And when ferroxidase isn't working, the body is really smart. It has a backup plan. It increases the production of estrogen. What is estrogen? It's an antioxidant. It's the plan B antioxidant in a body that has low ferroxidase. And why is the calcium rising? Calcium hangs out in the bones, obviously, but it also hangs out in two important intracellular compartments called the endoplasmic reticulum and the sarcoplasmic reticulum. A lot of people have probably never heard of those. And under stress, those compartments release calcium, and it causes calcium to show up on the hair. Now, what's important for people to know is that there's an enzyme that regulates that. and it's called Circa 2, SERCA plus plus, Circa 2, and it stands for um, endoplasmic and sarcoplasmic. So S is for sarco, and E is for endo, plasmic reticulum is the R, so we have SER. Then the C is for the first letter in calcium. The A is for the second letter in calcium, and the plus plus is the valence of calcium. Well, the circa 2 enzyme is copper dependent.
Right.
Oh, wow. So if the copper becomes unbound, it doesn't have its biological function. Circa 2 stops working, the calcium gets released, and so all of this foment about copper toxicity because people don't know the basic physiology. And I'm not talking about people that follow you. I'm talking about the doctors you go to. They
Yeah.
don't know what they don't learn this kind of physiology.
So
And so I
basically,
tease doctors that their degree, their MD degree, stands for mineral denialist. And they don't understand
so
how the body
basically,
works.
the solution for copper toxicity is to regulate your iron and with copper. Basically, you need copper.
That's right.
It
And it's
all
and it's
it
well
really is. That's why it's called the root cause protocol, because
right.
this really is the root of all. It's the solution to the root of all evil, by the sounds of things.
Right.
Can I steer us a slightly different way now to have a
Sure.
question about if oxygen is, rusting our iron inside? It sounds like oxygen's a bit of a baddie. So what do we think about, obviously we need oxygen to survive, but can you have too much oxygen? What I'm thinking about is breathing exercises, for instance, that Wim Hof does, where we're like,
Yeah.
is that making matters worse?
I don't know that it's making matters worse. I don't think a natural breathing exercise like that would make matters worse. What I think does make matters worse are the little bottles of oxygen that older people tend to use with the cannula, and they're constantly being exposed to oxygen. If if you're not the whole basis of our body is 21% of the air we breathe has oxygen in it. We can't live without it, but we can't age without it either. The oxygen, if it isn't activated by a copper enzyme in our mitochondria, it's called cytochrome C oxidase. If that enzyme does not turn oxygen into two molecules of water, and that chemical reaction is what releases the energy molecules. You you must be able to have water, which means it's pH sensitive. Water is at the pH of 7. It's created at the pH of 7. But if we can't make water, we're going to make oxidants. We're going to make accidents with oxygen. It's usually called oxidative stress, or it might be called ROS, reactive oxygen species, or they're sometimes called free radicals. Hey, they're free. Have as many as you want. I mean, that's the terminology is just insane. These are very destructive elements, and there's a whole network of enzymes, copper dependent enzymes. So oxygen is working both sides of the fence. It's designed to create the energy and clear the exhaust. There's when you're driving your car, let's see it, but there's always exhaust given to the air. That's happening inside our mitochondria. There's always oxidative stress. To rely on bioavailable copper, what makes it bioavailable is retinol. Very important to have animal-based fat, vitamin A in your diet. I'm not a maybe there is one. I'd love to learn about it. But
You just broke up there,
the,
Morley, for a moment. My
and
internet's a
what
bit
does fat
unstable.
mean?
You were saying retinol, but not, did you say a vegetable form of retinol?
I'm not aware of any vegetable form of retinol, a plant-based form of retinol. And the word fat in my world stands for from animal tissue. That's what FAT stands for, from animal tissue. Weston A. Price studied this meticulously, as you probably know. Um, and so the problem is people don't know how important copper is for this mechanism, and that they are easily led astray by the latest shiny object. And that's where a lot of the confusion takes place. The key is we've got to make the energy and we've got to clear the exhaust. And given the way the food system is designed now, um, there's extensive iron fortification, there's extensive vitamin B fortification, there's extensive vitamin D fortification. There is no copper fortification. There's no magnesium fortification. There's no retinol fortification. And in fact, more often than not, those are billed as toxins. Copper's a toxin.
Yeah.
Retinol's a toxin.
Yeah.
Watch out for that retinol toxicity. And as soon as you see the word toxicity, you need to be really leery and say, could they have this backwards?
Mm.
Could copper be the most important element on the planet? Could retinol be the most important element? And when everyone, including your neighbor, is telling you to take vitamin D, that's the first clue that it's time to stop taking it.
Yeah.
As a standalone supplement in liver oil, absolutely, because it's. But this idea of mononutrient supplementation, of take tons of iron, take tons of calcium. It's a very dangerous strategy. When you get into the real deep research, you find out, well, there's to pay for that.
Yeah. I do apologize. My internet connection seems to be quite unstable, but we got that message. May I ask one other little
Okay,
question about what's?
sure,
I
absolutely.
imagine I know what the answer is actually, but I just want the people to hear. What would be your solution and go-to for neuropathy and neurodegenerative diseases like Lou Gehrig's and motor neurone disease and things like that?
Uh, I've got a magic wand. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Okay. I would be doing iron chelation therapy, and I would be hooking people up to ceruloplasmin IVs.
Is there such a thing?
Well, in the research studies, yeah, you can't find a lab or you can't find a clinic that will do it, but the labs do it. But there's a whole field of study called ferroptosis. You may have never have heard of it. So you've got apoptosis, which is regulated cell death, and you have necroptosis, which is a very ugly form of cell death. Well, there's a ferroptosis is iron-directed cell death. And we were talking about indoxysulfate. Well, indoxysulfate is a major stimulant for ferroptosis. And ferroptosis shows up when ferroxidase is not working. And so what prevents ferroptosis? It's a very important copper enzyme called glutathione peroxidase 4, GPX4, well established in the literature as the mechanism to stop ferroptosis. But in a copper deficient body, it doesn't express properly. And so if I had all the money in the world and access to all the scientists in the world, I'd be doing iron chelation and chelating, or I would be doing IVs with ceruloplasmin. It's called holoceruloplasmin. That means fully loaded, has 8 copper atoms in it, and just stand back and watch the body heal itself
Where do they manufacture ready-made ceruloplasmin?
in in labs that we don't know about.
So other people are using it somewhere. Someone's using
Research
it
lab.
somewhere,
Oh yeah,
but we don't
they
have
they know what
access.
no, they know what the problem is.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So, what can the layman do to get rid of iron and to increase their copper?
Um, well, you certainly want to start out as a foundation, be doing the RCP,
For
but
sure.
I think you can use iron chelators like IP6. They're very effective, maybe as effective as some of the chemical chelators like desferoxamine or deferoprone. Um,
What's
I would be
IP6?
inositol hexaphosphate. It's a very it's a it's billed as a plant toxin. So when you're eating nuts and seeds, there's a lot of IP6 there. And when IP6 is taken away from food, it's a wonderful iron chelator. It's very effective. Um, and there's a company called IP6 International that sells a product called IP6 Gold, and it doesn't has amazing properties.
Okay.
So that would be one side. The other side is the enzyme that runs IP6 is called phytase, and there's a wonderful product called Good Fights, GOODPHYTES, and those are very effective at helping to regulate these key minerals. And I would be engaged in aggressive use of dietary copper supplements and trying to bolster the body's ability to manage it. I think lactoferrin would be another iron chelator. It's a naturally occurring um, chemical, as you know. It's found in milk, mammal milk. And what does it do? It chelates iron.
Great.
Lactoferrin. It's it's taking the iron out of the milk because Mother Nature knows that if that iron gets into the baby, it's going to create an infection. The
Which is
pathogens,
why on the GAPS protocol, when we do a lot of 24-hour fermenting of raw milks into kefir and yogurt and cultured cream, that helps with that kind of
absolutely,
thing.
yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
But the thing is, iron is the problem. It's always been the problem,
yeah.
and it's become a bigger problem in an era where there's no copper. Copper was first identified again by McCants and Widdowson. Oh, what do they know? They're just preeminent scientists. In the 30s, they identified copper deficiency as the number one nutrient deficiency on the farm.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
see. So
Talk
if
to
copper's
farmers.
not so if copper's not on the farm, it means it's not getting in the plants, which means it's not getting in the animals, which means it's not getting in the humans.
Hello. Yeah,
No, it's too basic.
yeah. It's so simple, really. I recently saw, I had a revelation. I had a ping moment where they give us these acronyms for the problems that the kids are having. They say they have ADHD or ODD, odd, oppositional defiant disorder, or
Right,
OCD, or they have PANS, PANS,
right.
I forget what it stands for now, or POTS, postural
Sure.
orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which basically means your heart beats and you have flutters when you stand up, or you feel
Right.
lightheaded because basically you weren't breathing deeply enough when you stood up and you haven't got enough copper and you've got
Like
too much iron.
dreams.
But it's pots and pans. It's pots and pans. Like the pots and pans
See,
you need in the
yeah,
kitchen to cook the food to make you be better. These acronyms they
right.
give us are all a bunch of nonsense. They just confuse and befuddle people when actually it's very, very simple. We just need not so much iron and a lot more copper. And we need real, beautiful, pasture raised animal fats and foods and meats and eggs and dairy with some low oxalate, preferably, and from my position anyway, vegetables and some seasonal fruits and local honey. And that's about it. And some fish, some shellfish, some fish. That's really all we need. We don't need anything else,
Mhm.
really. And we
It's
can
true.
make things from lentils and coconut flour and things like that instead of breads. We don't need grains because they're
The other thing we need to
toxic.
do is change the psychic diet, the words that we use to talk to ourselves with,
Oh, yeah,
and
that's a great point.
we're all guilty of that. And we were so focused on our our food diet. We're not thinking about our word diet, our
Oh, I
self-word.
love that, Morley. Do you mean
Yeah,
how we talk to ourselves when we've got that little voice in our head? Yeah, we're not very
absolutely.
kind to ourselves, generally
Not
speaking.
at all. And again, we're very hard on ourselves, and
Yeah,
that creates chronic social defeat,
right,
stress
right,
syndrome.
right.
It's a well documented mechanism, and it's very, very important for people to realize that um, to really get on top of this copper iron regulation, we've got to deal with the stress in our lives. Stress is never going to go away. As long as we're above ground, we're going to have stress.
Yeah,
And we have to pick our battles, but we have to especially release the fear that we carry that we're broken, that we're stuck, that we're trapped. And that image of being stuck or I'm I've got this condition, I've had this condition, I can see it tattooed on my forehead. You've got to get beyond that and release the boogeymen that are holding back the recovery.
I love that. That's the first chapter of my book, Bagel Goggles. Is I can't even remember what I called it now, but it was something about fear, as in we have
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of the fear and laugh in the face of adversity and start to enjoy ourselves on this trip. And when
That's
you
right.
can look at the problems really square in the eye and go, oh, I see what's happening, which is what you're helping everybody do. We can see
Mhm.
what's happening. When you can look the problem square in the eye, then you can just find the solutions and actually find the way to live a happy life, which is the ultimate defiance to the whoever they may be, or however we've created this terrible mess we're in. It's the ultimate defiance is to live in joy, to be joyful. And it's so hard to
Yeah.
get there these days. But when you start to read Cure Your Fatigue, when you start to look at the root cause protocol, when you come and work with me and come join Timeless Cookery Club, we can get to the bottom of these problems and just start to be enjoying ourselves, you know.
Yeah. Well, let me leave the listeners with one lasting impression that copper and iron express completely differently in the blood. When iron shows low in the blood, it means it's high in the tissue. When copper shows high in the blood, it means it's low in the tissue. Low iron, excuse me, low copper and high iron in the tissue is the basis for all the chronic disease.
Toxicity and deficiency. That's what I say all the time. There is no disease, there's only toxicity and deficiency. I could add to that now. There is only toxicity of iron and deficiency of copper.
Yeah, right. No, that's a fair and the challenge we've got is that there's two schools of thought about why we get sick. One school says there's 1,000 reasons why we get sick. The other school, there's only one reason why we get sick. Well, most people are over here.
Yeah,
Most people,
yeah,
most doctors, oh, there's thousands of reasons why we get sick.
yeah.
No, it's a three-ring circus.
I love it.
Three-ring circus. And it just begins to simplify the process of understanding how our bodies are meant to be in balance and how our environment, our diet, our thoughts, you know, and our chasing shiny objects, because everyone's guilty of that. Oh, what's the latest? You know, um, people need to stop chasing the shiny objects and start doing what our great grandparents and great great grandparents did, and that was put in a hard day's work. Have a good meal, get good rest. Get up with the sun, go down with the sun, and live a good life. Just we are defiant as far as we can be, and it works against us over time.
I love it. Just before we go, do you fancy giving me your top sources of copper in the food system?
In the food system, I think they are disappearing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Historically, they would have been in organ meats, shellfish, nuts and seeds, and broad leafy greens, mustard greens, collard greens, things like that. When I read that in 2022, 99% of French citizens are peeing glyphosate in their urine, that means that, that glyphosate is now in the air, in the water table, and the copper is not as prevalent as people think it is.
Right.
We've got to be very selective about where we get our copper. In 2022, what we'll back up. At the beginning of 2020, we were all under house arrest, as we may recall, and we were all quaking in our boots. And I began to
I
learn about,
wasn't.
well,
I wasn't
I know,
quaking in my boots. I was going,
yeah, right, yeah, right. Most people are quaking in their boots, and um, everyone was taking a COVID cocktail, ascorbic acid, high dose ascorbic acid, high dose vitamin D, and high dose zinc. And what people don't know is that that's the perfect triad to kill copper in the body. And so it was around April of 2020, I renamed what COVID stood for. COV stands for copper's vanished. ID stands for iron's dysregulated. The part that people don't know is that when copper is down, iron accumulates in the liver. It was well established in two major studies here in the States in 1928, March, March of 1928 at the University of Wisconsin, May of 1928 at the University of Kentucky. So low copper breeds high iron in the tissue, especially the liver tissue. That's not your friend. And so in 2021, I decided to write a book, the first edition of that book.
got that.
In 2022, I decided to develop a copper supplement called Recuperate. Right? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Folks, I didn't pay her to do that.
I've been loving it actually. Really, it's
No, it's just
fantastic.
it's a very bioavailable form of copper. And the mistake that people make is they think, oh, I need more copper, so I'll go to Amazon and I'll just buy the cheapest one I can.
Mm.
That's not the cheapest one, but it's probably the best one. And it's a very bioavailable form because it has desiccated beef liver, it has spirulina, it has turmeric, and it has boron. And those are cofactors to make the copper more usable inside the body. So it isn't just a simple, oh, my copper gas tank is low, I'll just throw whatever garbage I can find. No, you want to be thoughtful about it.
Well, I've also
And
heard
that,
that a lot of people who take, sorry to interrupt you, a lot of
yeah,
people
that's
who
right.
go and try and take big doses of copper just get very, very sick, actually. They get really poorly from it.
And I'm glad you raised that. Do you want to know why?
Go on.
What is copper's job in the body?
Regulating
To
iron.
mobilize
All
iron.
right.
It mobilizes it, then it regulates it, right? And so there are cells in our stomach called parietal cells. Guess what they accumulate? Iron. Guess what accumulates in the duodenum? Iron. Guess what accumulates in the organs? Iron, as they
Iron.
as they say as they say in Ireland. Iron.
Iron.
Iron. And so the thing is, people don't realize how simple the body is. And so the body walls off this toxin, this iron toxin, sometimes with what? Oh yeah, oxalates. And then people don't realize that when you take copper by itself, it can create nausea. It can also create a sensation of like anxiety almost or racing mind. Well, that's just the iron being mobilized. The nausea is from the iron. The racing mind is from the iron, and everybody blames the copper.
Yeah.
Copper's just doing its job. And so the beauty of the recuperate is it's complexed with food factors that modulate its impact so that it can begin to work its magic under a more measured pace. It's really kind of cool the way it does it. So I think in terms of other food, I think other forms would be transdermal. There's a copper cream and a copper serum that the company that makes the recuperate, they also sell that. There's copper water, which is a very low dose, but people swear by it. Um, for people who have uh, post-COVID loss of taste and smell, put that copper water in a nebulizer and let the copper-rich water restore the copper in your nasal passage to restore the taste and smell in your digestive
Because
tract.
everybody
It's
says
very,
when you lose your sense of smell, you need zinc.
oh, I know. And what does zinc do? It kills the copper.
Yeah, right.
No, it's just
Well,
it's never ending.
my favourite source of copper is Oyster Max. And if anybody
Oh,
wants to go to Marine Health Foods and order
I
themselves
was
some
just going to get there.
Oyster Max
Yeah,
and get 10% off with GAPS 10 at checkout, they're very welcome because that's a wonderful source of copper with zinc, with iodine, with selenium, with the amino acids, with the micro
it's a
minerals from the
very
sea,
balanced.
and it has its enzyme function intact as well because they've dried it very, very carefully. And all of their
Yeah,
batches are tested for, because everyone says oysters are bottom feeders and you're going to get toxic accumulation of heavy metals if you eat them, but it's
no,
absolute nonsense.
no. The sea is actually a hotbed of minerals, as you know, and the oyster is a very special. Um, I don't know. It's a mollusk. I guess that's what we would call it,
Yeah,
and it has tremendous capacity to restore mineral status in the body. No,
yeah,
I swear by that. That's a great product. Yeah.
great. Morley, what a joy it has been to reconnect with you. I really hope I might see you at next year's Western A, this year's Western A Price conference. Maybe that'd be lovely.
I'll
The
definitely
rise
be
of
there.
dishes.
It'll be in DC, which is just 5 hours up the road for me. I don't
Cool.
know whether I'll be speaking this year, but I will definitely be there, and I'll decide whether I'm going to exhibit or not. But it's going to be a real love fest. I think being the 25th anniversary, it'll be
Yeah,
fun.
man. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for illuminating our lives, Morley, and all power to you and all you do.
Well, thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation.
Okay. Bye bye, everybody.